I do have to say that I was a little hesitant to do this teaching, which made me a little nervous about whether or not I should do it. And it's really not what I wanted to finish out our year with, but this is what we got. So well, that's what we're going to have. So we'll see how it goes, and you can all make comments later on or whatever. So I trust though that you'll be blessed by all of this. So it's kind of about the fruit of the spirit, but it might go a little different than that. Let's see what happens. So. Um, let's see. There we go. So we've covered a lot of spiritual ground the past couple of years, especially this year, and we've covered prophecy, we've covered tongues with interpretation, we've covered word of knowledge, we've covered prayer, the equipping ministries, deliverance, and we're still in the midst of understanding and exploring healing. So we've covered a lot of ground on the spiritual end of it, and a lot of the manifestations of Holy Spirit and how to work them and how to use them more effectively. And I think we've done pretty good together as a team and growing and learning from one another. And if you want to, if you would like to hear any of the teachings that we've done, I think mostly for this year. I don't know that we have any from the year before, but if there's any of the teachings that you'd be interested in hearing, you can contact Gail and she can give you the YouTube links for a specific subject if you like. So before we head out for the summer to reconcile men and women to God, we want to be sure that we are walking in His will for our lives. And of course, like I said, we've done so much with the manifestations, but now we have to remember. I'm trying to get this out of the way here. Our little faces are in the way. I'm shrinking you all down. Okay, there we go. But before we head out, I want to make sure that we are walking in His will for our life, as I said. As you know, in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it says, if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, we're nothing. And, we take this verse and we think, I know, but I just want to spend a little time giving ourselves a checkup in this area because it is so important. Because it's all wonderful and stuff that we can prophesy. It's all wonderful that we're learning all these things, and word of knowledge was a lot of fun last week and all these different things. But it's not enough to operate the power. We must also be aware of our character. And so that's what I want to concentrate a little on tonight. Okay. So I'm going to start out in Isaiah 51, kind of heavy verses, so take it with a grain of salt. So in verse 1, it says, I cry out aloud, do not hold back, lift up your voice like a shofar, and declare to my people their disobedience, and to the house of Jacob their sins. So Yahweh is telling Isaiah, shout out to the people, don't hold back, tell them what they're doing wrong. And then in verse 2, it says, yet they seek me daily and seem to delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that did what is right and did not forsake the ordinances of their God. So he's saying, he's saying here, I don't understand this. It looks like they're doing fine. I'm sure Isaiah was thinking to the Lord, it looks like they're doing everything they're supposed to do. And the Lord is saying, they seem to think they know my ways. So that's pretty, uh-oh. So we look at how righteous we are sometimes, and we do all the stuff, so the Lord is showing them they do all this stuff, and they're saying in verse 3, they ask me for righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. They say, we have fasted, and you do not see. We've afflicted our souls, but you do not notice. This is what they're saying to God, the people. Behold, in the day of your fast, you seek your own pleasure and oppress all the workers. So the people are saying, they're saying, look how righteous we are. We do all this stuff for you. You don't even bless us and give us what we want. And then what does God say to them? The day of your fast, you seek your own pleasure and oppress all your workers. So God answers them and says, you're not doing what I want you to do. And even though it looks good, even though it looks like this is what I should be doing, the Lord is saying, nah, you're missing it, guys. So in verse 4, he says, behold, you fast only to quarrel and fight and to strike others with the fist of wickedness. You cannot fast as you do this day and make your voice heard on high. In this manner of fasting that is this the manner of fasting I have chosen? A day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head like a reed and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Will you call this fast an acceptable day to Yahweh? See, what God is saying to them, it's not, he's not accepting their sacrifice. And he says, he puts us in mind at how there are times that we just don't see the whole picture, maybe because of wrong teaching or what we've learned on, about different things in our lives. But they're saying, hey, we're doing all this stuff for you, God, and you're not accepting our sacrifice. Well, because they're not doing the right things. He's saying in verse 4, you fast and only to quarrel and fight. See, that's not cool. We might say, all right, well, this is kind of heavy stuff if you look at these verses. But I don't know about you, but there are times in my life where I've quarreled with my brothers and sisters in Christ, and I've never healed it up. I know that instead there have been times in my life where I turned to gossip and complain to others about the situation rather than heal the situation and accept each other, our sisters and brothers, where we're at. And so that fits right into this category. Yeah, that's really great that I do all these things for God, but where's my heart at? Am I being unified with the body of Christ? Am I doing the things that the Lord would have me to do? And I get it. We've all got different ideas of what the Lord wants from us. And I remember as a kid, I'd go to church on Sunday. I was Catholic. And I remember thinking, okay, everything is good as long as I go to church on Sunday. And it was hard. It wasn't close by, and nobody else in my family went. I'd have to walk there. It was about 1.5 miles, which isn't too bad. But on a Sunday when you want to sleep in, that was a fast for me. That was, really doing what I didn't want to do. And I thought that was going to make a difference in my life. And then for me personally, it didn't. It didn't show me any more of God's heart or accomplish the things that I thought it was going to. But again, it was just what I was taught. And it wasn't for a while, until a while later, that I learned about relationship with the Father and how wonderful that could be. So, we have to accept each other where we're at. And we did cover this in unity. And for any of you, and this bothers God. He doesn't want us to be fighting or taking advantage of one another or oppressing one another in any way. I mean, for any of you who have kids, you know how hard it is when they don't get along. I remember thinking my parents couldn't possibly love my sister like they love me. She never cleaned her room. She was always getting in trouble, and she skipped school and snuck out and went to bars. And yet my fallible mom still loved her too. It was unbelievable. And so sometimes we have to get over that hump to realize that the Father loves all of us very much. And so that behooves us to love one another. And we're supposed to be known by the love we have for one another. We're God's kids and unique and wonderful. And so when he says in verse 5, is this the manner of fasting that I've chosen? A day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down and he's going about all this stuff. Will you call this a fast, an acceptable day to Yahweh? And the resounding answer is no. Okay. So then verse 6 says, isn't this the kind of fast that I choose? And this is what God's idea was. They were making up their idea of what it was based on the things that they had learned. But this is what God chooses: to release the bonds of wickedness, to untie the straps of the yoke, and to let the oppressed go free, and that you tear off every yoke. Okay, this is a different thing than what people were thinking. He doesn't care that I memorize Ephesians or that I listen to teachings all day long. You see, those are good. Those are works. They help to build the faith in my life, and I know that pleases God. But what is my motive? Is it so that I can be great, or is it for love? Or is everything I do pointing to Christ? Verse 7, is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and that you bring the homeless poor into your house, and that when you see the naked person, you cover him, and that you do not hide yourself from your own flesh? All these things that we do to better our lives is good, but as we'll see in the New Testament, to be a living sacrifice, the thing we want to do is minister to God's people. And that's the greater thing. Then your light will break forth, verse 8, like the dawn, and your healing will spring forth speedily, and your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of Yahweh will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and Yahweh will answer. You will cry out, and he will say, here I am. See, those are the benefits of following what he would like. And then it goes on. But it's important to follow that the Lord wants, not that we follow what the Lord wants and not what we think he wants. But how do we know if we're heading in the right direction? Well, it's a good thing we're going to get to that. First, we're going to read another verse here. In Matthew 7:20 through 25, it tells us, or 23. Oh yeah, that's a 3. So then you will recognize them by their fruit. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many miracles in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. You see, what he's saying here is that we're known by our fruit. And so that's different than the Spirit of God. Now I know there's a difference between the Old and the New Testament and the Spirit of God living in us. And I'm not going to get into all that theology right now. But the point being that it's important, our fruit is important in our lives. And that's how we recognize other believers too, is by the fruit in their life. And so something I do occasionally is I do a review of this fruit of the Spirit in my life, and then I give myself a progress report. And I started this when I was a teenager. I remember the first time I read the fruit of the Spirit, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's no way I'll ever be able to accomplish any of these things. And yet, over time, living the Word and growing and being closer to the Lord, some of this stuff I'm actually starting to see happen in my life, which is really a blessing. So what I'd like to do is go to Galatians. And what does it say? But the fruit of the Spirit, and of course this is all familiar, but we're going to go over it anyway. The fruit of the Spirit, and think about these things as we go through them. Don't just run them off in your head, but think about where, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you with these things in your life? Okay? So the first one we know, of course, is love. And that's all the time, not just when we feel like it, or somebody we want to love, or somebody who loves us. We've got to love all the time. And then joy is not just when things are going well. If I have a flat tire, I have to be thankful for the spare. If I don't have a spare, I have to be thankful for AAA. If I don't have AAA, I can be thankful for my cell phone to call a friend. And if I'm manifesting the fruit of the Spirit, I should have a friend. And if I don't have friends, I should be thankful for the miracle that the Lord's going to do to pull me out of this mess. See, there's always something that you can be thankful for. And so that can bring you joy in your life. So it's important that I am consistently thankful and joyful, no matter what the circumstances, not just when things are good. And so that's a good checkup. When we're under stress or pressure, how do we handle it? Are we walking in joy? The next one, of course, is peace. Do we really have peace? For some, again, I'll default to grandparents that do we have peace even when our kids or grandkids are not walking in the way of the godly? Is someone we love drinking too much? Are we facing divorce, money issues? Do we have full confidence in our Father at those times too? Because we should. And I'll share an account with you. That happened to me several years ago. And I don't bring up these accounts to, I said this last time too, it's to bring you to Christ. It's to understand better how when we're walking in Christ, that this is available for all of us. This isn't, I'm sure you all have wonderful stories that you could be telling if you were doing the teaching right now. But I remember several years ago, probably, yeah, it was the last time we went camping in New York. Danny and I were camping down on a beach down on Long Island, and our daughter was at camp. She was about 15 at the time. She was at camp up in the Albany area with a bunch of believers and teenagers. And so we got a call one day that she had done a backflip on or some kind of flip on the trampoline and broke her neck. And so we couldn't leave that night. It was Friday night at dinner time. And if you know anything about New York in the summer at Friday at 5 o'clock, you just can't leave. There was no way to leave. We had to wait till the morning. The roads would have taken us all night to get there anyway. It was actually faster to wait than to try and get there overnight. So the whole time we were going up there, we were still in traffic for hours and hours. We had a camper and you have to take special roads. You can't go on parkways. You can only go on expressways, and there's a lot of stuff. But the whole time, it never occurred to me to not be peaceful about it. It never occurred to me that God was not going to take care of my kid. It was like, all right, when we get there, we get there. And so when we finally did get there, we showed up at the hospital in the Albany area. And I remember coming into the room, and the doctor was so shook up. And my daughter was laying in a bed with a neck brace on her neck. And, but she was still able to move. She wasn't paralyzed. And the doctor was like, do you understand? Like, he was so shook up. Do you understand how lucky you are that you weren't completely paralyzed for your whole, you would have been a quadriplegic if it had just been this or that or the other thing. And of course, her being a believer and us being believers, we knew what the peace of God was, and we knew that our God would not let us down. And so, yeah, peace, it's an important thing. And I guess I get a 10 for that, or a 9 or a 10 out of 10 for that one. So, all right, patience. The REV commentary says to be patient in bearing the offenses and injuries of others. And that's a good one, because people offend us. People make mistakes, and it's easy to be offended, but we need to have patience with our sisters and brothers. And, again, I've said this before, it's easy to love God. It's not as easy to love flawed brothers and sisters. So we have to work on that and have patience. And then, of course, is kindness. And John Shainheit did a great teaching on this a few years back. You could probably find it on their website, about kindness and how important it is. And the REV says kindness is willing, ready to do good, and it expresses itself in deeds towards others. And even if your spouse forgot to take out the garbage again, this is an easy one to check ourselves out on, to make sure that we're walking in kindness and doing whatever we can to bless the other person. I'm not picking on my husband. He always takes the garbage out. There are times I don't even know where he keeps the garbage cans. So I'm not referring to him. I'm not throwing him under the bus. But yeah, kindness is a big one. And there are so many times in our lives where we could do kind acts for people, and it will show them who we are. Again, it's easy to check yourselves on this one by when was the last time you did something kind for a stranger. And that can play a big role in people's lives. Just to people get so blessed when you do something, the smallest thing for them. I was in a grocery store a couple of weeks ago, and there were no more grocery carts. So you can imagine the store was very crowded. And then there was this, I went back outside and I found one, and I brought it back into the store. And when I got back in, I noticed this older woman, older than me, standing there without a cart. And So I went up to her and I offered her my card. And she did tell me, oh, thank you, but my daughter went to get one. And so when I went on my way. And a little while later, her daughter came up to me and said, thank you so much. That was so kind of you. And in my mind, that's just what you would do for somebody else. I just think that we can really show the love of God by the kindness we have in our lives. So something just as little as all that is kind of cool. Okay, we've got goodness, which encompasses a lot. And a person with this, all I can think about is them being known in the gates and being known for their goodness. And then, of course, faithfulness. And faithfulness is every day and the next day and the next day and the next day. And, it's the difference between having to do something and willing to with joy and thankfulness in our hearts that determines whether we're actually doing this in faithfulness or we're doing it because we have to do something. That's my own little take on it. But faithfulness is an awesome thing. Okay, meekness. If we're always right, Uh, it's not a miracle or that we're so great. No, if we are always right, we might want to take this time to go to Him in prayer because there might be something missing there because we're not going to always be right. And meekness is the willingness and the humility to accept things when you're wrong and not get bent out of shape. Sometimes we don't see things. I know for myself, somebody will bring something to my attention. If I don't see it, I don't see it. But then I go and I pray on it, and then I can be contrite and say, oh, yeah, I see it now. I see what I did wrong and ask for forgiveness. And then you can move on without any barriers in your life. I know for my husband and I, we have always been so careful to just get in there and discuss things that might be bothering us and not hold anything back. And it's just a great way to live that I don't have any. So often you find couples where they just, they pile things on and it's one bad thing and then another bad thing. And then all these things pile on. And before you know it, they're not even talking to each other or they've built up so much resentment for one another that they can't function. And of course, we know where that leads to these days. It used to be they just would yell at each other, but these days divorce seems to be the way out for people. And I know for Danny and myself that now we don't have a perfect marriage, but we work things out so that we're not holding anything that might build up in our hearts to make each other angry at one another. Okay. And then self-control is our ability to do the right thing even when our flesh doesn't want to. And so there you have it. Those are the fruit of the Spirit that we should look at once in a while and remember that there is no law against such things. So this is always going to work. Whenever you choose to do these things, they are going to work. And I've learned so much this year about that. And I'm so thankful for it. And I'm going to keep working on it. And of course, if we do these things, we'll all be superheroes. How to get him in one more time before the end of the summer, the end of the season. Okay. So, what is pleasing to the Lord? We can ask him. For you who were formerly darkness, but now are you light in the Lord. Walk as children of the light. For the fruit of the Lord, the fruit of the light consists in all goodness and righteousness and truth, trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. And so if you want to know what's pleasing to, ask him. Let's look at things through the fresh lens of the Spirit working in our lives and not just be so regimented to what we think we're supposed to be doing. I've seen that so often. How often do you go into an office or you're working in a new place or maybe not often that you're working in a new place, but there have been times where I've done freelance or I've worked in a company and I'll be like, all right, well, why do you do it this way? Because you can see clearly it's not, oh, we've always done it that way. Well, that's not the right answer. The right answer is, hey, let's fix this. And so for myself, there have been times where I have gone in, I've changed the whole system, and people were thankful. Sometimes they were mad. Who do I think I am? Well, to make something run more efficiently, I would think in the business world would be a blessing. Same too in our lives. Just because something worked in the past doesn't mean that you should do that for the rest of your life. Great example, some of our churches. Some of the churches, oh, they start one tradition, and the next thing you know, that tradition is so ingrained in their culture that they can't move forward and do other things. And so we should be asking the Lord so that we are looking for new things and fresh things that we'd have. God is so creative. God has so much creativity. Look, just even in this group alone, look around you at all the different people, how different we all have faces. We all have ears, we have eyes, we have nose, we have a mouth, and yet we all look completely different. I can recognize DL from Mina, or Steve from Jim, or whatever it might be. I don't have you in front of me, so I'm just going off what I remember from today. Or what about where we live? Some of us are in the desert, some of us are in the mountains, some of us are down by the beaches, and some of us are in the heartland where there's crops and beautiful things to look at there. So there's so much beauty in the world and so much that we can learn. And it isn't about how much Bible we know, or how many people we heal, or how many meetings we attend. These are good things, but the fruit of the Spirit is a better place to start. Okay, so we know, except the Lord build the house, the laborers labor in vain. Psalm 127:1. And this is an important thing. There we go. Except the laborers. And he knows what he's doing. That's the thing. If we let the Lord build the house, all the pieces come together. Sometimes you don't realize, oh wow, yeah, you're good at this. I'm not so good at that. Maybe we could work together. Maybe we could collaborate. So he knows. And what matters to God is what counts. And what are you supposed to do? I don't know, because it's different than what I should do. So we should be creative. Let's be creative. I shouldn't tell anybody. Let's be creative. Let's think out of the box. We all have different jobs. Let's not worry about what we aren't good at, and start asking the Lord what he wants us to do. And you'll find more times than not that the thing he wants you to do is the very thing that's been on your heart all along. And sometimes we just stumble trying to figure out how to get to where he wants us to be. So let's trust him. Let's put that peace to work. Let's put that faithfulness to work and challenge ourselves. Forget about all our preconceived ideas about how to be a Christian and what we're supposed to do. And I'll just say this with most of the people in the room: let's be weaponized retirees with radical love for God's people and radical joy. And how exciting is it as we jump into our next adventure?